Mr. Rivera, your preliminary hearing will then be set for August 31st, 2018 at 2 p.m. Mr. Rivera, I now need to review with you the maximum penalties for your charge. If found guilty of the charge of murder in the first degree, the maximum penalty will be imposed. The maximum penalty is life in prison without the possibility of parole. This sentence cannot be deferred or suspended. The defendant will be required to provide a DNA sample and may be required to register with the sex offender registry. And if not a U.S. citizen, a plea of guilty can result in additional immigration consequences up to and including deportation. The immigration detainer notice of action requires that at the completion of this criminal matter, you be transferred to the Department of Homeland Security to keep complete processing and assessment of your citizenship. Mr. Rivera, do you have any questions about the penalties or requirements as listed?
No.
Mr. Rivera, we're now going to discuss the terms of your release from jail. I must now set bond in terms of your release from jail. In making these decisions, I take into account whether you will appear for future hearings if you are released, and whether the public will be safe if you are released. Mr. Brown, do you wish to make any arguments on behalf of this?
Just briefly, Judge. Yesterday, whenever we discussed this charge and authorized it, it was presented to Judge Gammon, I believe. We had no input on the bond. I noticed that she had initially set a bond amount as $1 million cash only. If I had been asked at that time what I thought the bond should be, I would have requested a $5 million bond cash only. That's what we would request here. We think it is appropriate given the severity of the charge, his immigration status, at least as it's been described to me, and the fact that what he's accused of obviously is a very heinous crime, and certainly the safety of the community should be foremost in the court's mind whenever setting bonds. So that's what we would request, that bond be set amount of $5 million cash only.
Thank you. Mr. Richards, would you like to make any argument on bond in terms of release?
Yes, Your Honor. Cristhian is a young man. He's been working for a number of years for a respectable person in this community. No prior criminal record. He sits here presumed innocent. There's been no evidence at all introduced to the court, and there is actually no history. When he came to this country as a minor, he had the equivalent of a 7th, maybe 8th grade education, so his understanding of these proceedings is what's going on. We are urging the court to be fair to Cristhian with his rights, including his bond. And I have great respect for the court and Your Honor that you will protect those rights, and so we ask you to do that, but one of those would be setting a bond that at least somewhat may be attainable. We will take a look at your ruling and probably ask for a review hearing on the matter regardless.
Thank you. Mr. Rivera, you're not required to say anything at this appearance, but you are given the opportunity to say something. Would you like to say anything before I order the terms and conditions of your release from jail?
No.
Mr. Rivera, the following terms of release from jail are ordered. Bond in the amount of $5 million, cash only, in the name of the defendant only, and only after approval for pretrial release by the Department of Corrections. If released, you may not leave Poweshiek County, Iowa without written consent of the court. You must turn over your passport or any other travel documents issued by the United States or any other country to the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office within 24 hours of this initial appearance. You must submit to the Department of Corrections for pretrial release supervision for review, approval, and registration for participation by the department at least 48 hours prior to the release from jail. That means that if you are not accepted for supervision by the Department of Corrections, you will not be able to post bond to be released from jail. Mr. Rivera, do you have any questions about the terms and conditions that I have just listed?
No.
Mr. Brown, is there anything you believe the defendant should be apprised of today before I close the record?
Judge, I assume there's been a probable cause finding made pursuant to the rule.
Yes, there has been a probable cause finding for the charge of murder in the first degree.
Okay. Other than that, no, I don't have anything further.
Mr. Richards, is there anything that you believe the defendant should be apprised of today before I close the record?
We're satisfied with the court's procedures today.
The preliminary hearing shall be scheduled for August 31st, 2018 at 2 p.m. This closes the record.